All right, I want to talk with you guys and gals a little bit today about the history of progressive overload. This is something I haven't made a video on in quite a while. And it's something I used to talk about quite a bit a decade ago, but it's worth touching upon. You know, there's a younger generation coming into lifting and they may not know all this history. So this goes all the way back to ancient Greece. So when we talk about progressive overload, this is something that they knew 3,000 years ago. This was written about. In fact, the earliest account of it, because keep in mind, the ancient Greeks cared a lot about exercise. They cared a lot about fitness, right? These philosophers, believed in physical fitness. They believed in having strong, fit bodies. I mean, again, where do you think the Olympics originated? In ancient Greece, right? Ancient Greece. That's where the Olympic Games came from originally, that we now host all around the world, and pretty much every nation on earth is involved in. Okay, but the first account was of a man named Milo of Croton. And Milo was at the time considered to be the strongest man in the known world to the Greeks. Keep in mind, you only have what they're aware of, but he was at the time considered to be the strongest man in the world. And he was a famous wrestler and strongman at the time, and he is pretty much considered to be the father of progressive overload, as in the first person whose ideas and methods of it were actually put into writing in any historical record. And what Milo was famous for was Milo and the Bull. And what he did, Milo speculated something and he tried it out, and apparently it worked pretty well. He went and got a little baby bull calf, and he used to get under it and squat it and get it squatted up on his shoulders, just like we would with a squat bar, right? And he would walk around town with it and carry this bull around, this little baby bull calf. Well, as most of you can speculate, that thing's going to get bigger. And it did. And what he did, he got up and put that bull up on his shoulders and carried it, like almost like a yoke lift, right? Squatted it up and did a yoke lift with it and walked around with it every day. And remember, that bull's going to gain a tiny amount of weight every day. It may not be a full pound, but it got bigger every day, a few ounces, 50 grams, whatever. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And he eventually, because he carried it the entire time, and he speculated that as long as he could keep lifting it at the rate that it got bigger, that his body would adapt and he would be big enough and strong enough, most importantly, strong enough to lift that whole bull. And once that bull got to be a couple years old, he did this for a couple of years, then his feat of strength that he would display was to get under this bull, which was quite used to him carrying it every day. You know, you can imagine a normal bull might not be cool with that, but since I guess it had gotten used to it every single day since it was a baby, it just more or less allowed it. And so he got under this bull and lifted the bull, lifted a whole-grown bull. Now, many historians and lifting experts have kind of commented and said, well, it wasn't a bull like we have today with all the selective breeding and these 2,000-pound bulls. That it was probably, a 400 or 500-pound bull at the most. Okay, but the point still stands, doesn't it? The point still stands, even if it was a 400 or more impressively a 500-pound bull, because maybe that's how big they appeared to get during that period in that region of the world. No one else had done it, and people were in awe. And quite frankly speaking, considering this was an era before PEDs, before modern medicine, modern food, modern sports science, the fact that he was able to lift this bull, get up and carry it around, get it up on his shoulders and walk with it, it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. No, it wouldn't compete with the best in chemically enhanced athlete today. But back then, it was quite something. And in fact, it was so impressive that for thousands of years, we've continued to refer back to it. And even in modern sports science, it is still looked at, and it's understood as some of the early works as far as strength training, because it worked. Keeping in mind, the Greeks cared about this stuff. They were just as interested and getting big and strong and powerful, impressive physiques and bodies as many of us are today. And their best minds put efforts into it. And so again, it worked. And thus, the entire concept of progressive overload was born. And we know that progressive overload works. In other words, if you progressively lift more weight over prolonged periods of time in very small increments, you will get stronger. We also know that you will get bigger. At least you'll get bigger in the sense of people say, well, isn't training close to failure really the most important thing? Well, for hypertrophy, it does seem to be. Not saying you have to absolutely do it. If you want to do it efficiently, then yes. It absolutely is the most efficient and effective method for getting there. But here's the thing. If you keep training close to failure, the reps are going to get real high, because as you gain muscle, you're going to gain strength. So you're going to have to increase the workload, or you will no longer be training close to failure, particularly if you're going to stay with the same weight. Let's say you're trying to stay around 10 or 12 reps. I'm just throwing that out there. It's a commonly prescribed rep range for getting bigger. You're going to have to add weight. Over the months, over the years, you're going to have to, because if you don't, even if you're going strict, even if you're going controlled, even if you're doing long ranges of motion, you will simply not be close to failure at the same weight anymore. Right? In many cases, you might double or triple over the years the amount of weight that you can do for 10 reps. Okay? Because again, progressive overload, it's tied to muscle growth, it's tied to strength, and it is an integral part of the process. And this has been measured and acknowledged as far back as ancient Greece, these ancient philosophers, right? Socrates, Aristotle, these people knew about it because it was being documented, written about back then. So again, this is an ancient concept. It's not just something that we have observed and utilized for the past 100 years, say in the modern Western world for strength training and muscle building. It's going back to some of the earliest real written history that we have access to. And that's only looking at what we know in the West. Who knows what? They may have it documented in other countries. It wouldn't surprise me if the same thing was noted somewhere and we just aren't talking about it in the West. In ancient Chinese records. It wouldn't surprise me, because it works. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.